final approach. Just kidding. Look how it's shaking. I can't see the ground. Everything is shaking. This landing is going to be glorious. It is. So yeah, it's going to be awesome. Let's call them for, you know,
Первый. Вам разрешена посадка. Следите за самолетами на полосе.
Okay, fantastic. And I'm supposed to be able to see something. Yes, yes. And see how it's shaking? This is, by the way, this is at normal speed. So yeah, this is going to be great.
Разрешите посадку.
It's going to be freaking awesome. So let's sum up.
Разрешите
I
посадку.
can't see anything. And is he... Wait a second. Is he above this freaking...
Третий. Это диспетчер. Прекратите снижение.
Wait,
Ждите.
where is this? Did they
Прекратите
make the
снижение.
airfield?
Я третий.
Did
Ухожу
they
на
make the
следующий
airfield
круг. Второй. Внимание. Полоса
on
занята.
this
Посадку не
hilltop?
разрешаю.
Because if they
Уходите
did,
на
I'm going
второй
to
круг.
hate Russians
Я
forever.
второй. Ухожу на следующий круг.
And I'm serious.
Четвертый.
This is just
Внимание.
terrifying.
Полоса
Oh, there it
занята.
is. Okay,
Посадку не
fantastic.
разрешаю. Уходите на второй круг. Я четвертый. Ухожу на
Fan-fucking-tastic.
следующий круг.
Well, the good news is... Oh god.
Разрешите посадку.
The good news is that the airfield is made
Я
from
седьмой. Разрешите
asphalt. The
посадку.
bad news
Я
is
восьмой.
that
Разрешите посадку.
that it's shaking, I can't see it, and I'm going to die. Fantastic. Okay, moving on with my landing. Here it is. Okay, this
Шестой.
P2.
Это диспетчер. Прекратите снижение.
Yeah, it's...
Ждите.
Okay, you know what game?
Прекратите снижение.
You know what
Я
game?
шестой. Ухожу на
You know what
следующий круг.
game? I can't see
Седьмой.
anything.
Внимание.
I don't know if it's a
Полоса
river
занята.
or an airfield.
Посадку не
I mean, look
разрешаю.
at this.
Уходите
Look
на
at
второй
this.
круг. Я седьмой.
I
Ухожу на
can't
следующий
see
круг. Восьмой.
what
Внимание.
the fuck is
Полоса
going on.
занята. Посадку
I
не
cannot see the
разрешаю.
ground.
Уходите на второй круг.
I just,
Ухожу на следующий
wow.
круг.
Just fucking wow. Okay, this guy's landing. Okay, fantastic.
Я
This is
третий.
going to be
Разрешите
terrifying.
посадку. Я второй. Разрешите посадку.
Yes, okay, fantastic. We are doing well. We're gonna crash into this motherfucker right now. Or not.
Третий. Это диспетчер. Посадку разрешаю. Второй. Это диспетчер. Прекратите снижение. Ждите.
Oh my god.
Прекратите
This
снижение.
was glorious derpage.
Ухожу на следующий круг.
This was derpage of the highest order.
Полоса занята. Посадку не разрешаю. Уходите на
See
второй
this
круг.
shit? Did you see this shit?
Ухожу на следующий круг.
We just passed him on the runway. The only way I landed was because let's get on the runway today. It was because I saw where he was landing. Stop crashing this P2.
Я
It was
седьмой.
supposed to.
Разрешите посадку. Я восьмой. Разрешите посадку.
And yeah, we have actually landed. Everybody give me, applause. We can start clapping now. Chuck's in, right? Chuck's in. Engine up. And by the way, ground
Это
control.
диспетчер. Прекратите снижение.
landing.
Ждите.
I'm clear for landing. Thank you, game. Thank
Я
you.
шестой. Ухожу на
Okay, this was
следующий круг.
glorious.
Седьмой.
I just
Это
want to say
диспетчер.
that this mission was glorious. I didn't accomplish anything,
Ждите.
but the
Прекратите
landing was
снижение.
glorious.
Я седьмой. Ухожу на следующий.
So, we destroyed one plane. Wow. IR-80. Okay, history lesson coming up. Spoiler alert. These are Romanian planes, and Romanians, as we know, were with the Axis. Lag 3. Okay, so there were Lag 3s with us. BF-110s. We didn't see the IRs. We saw the we saw the Bf-110s. And I have landed. Okay, we're going to apply, because this was glorious. We got a shutdown, and we got a shoot down, and we got a freaking kill. Bf-110, C4. Oh yeah, bitches. Now, we're going to protect the airfields. Okay, fantastic. Not a ground pounding mission, but let's see the objects. And we're going to see the aircraft, and we're going to see the enemy, which is ER 80. Aha. Now, here's the interesting history of this plane. I am Polish, and this plane is very interesting to me because I'm Polish. But wait, it's a Romanian plane. It flew for the Axis. Yes. But what happened? This airplane was developed from Polish parts. What happened was Poland had actually, believe it or not, had a really strong, well, somewhat strong weapons export industry. And they actually exported a lot of fighter planes to different nations. They had a PZL, Polskie Zakłady Lotnicze, which means Polish Aircraft Works, 11, I believe the type was. And it was a super modern plane. It was one of the most advanced planes in the world in 1932, in 1933. When 1936 came around and a new generation of monoplanes came in, like Bf-109, or Messerschmitt 109, whichever you want to say, and I-16s, that plane got a bit, shall we say, not so modern. It got a little bit obsolete. Yes. So let's show this plane, if we can. Aha! See this? See this beauty? No cabin. The cabin here is actually correct. It's very, it flies very strangely. Yes. So you can see this plane is not exactly a world beater in 1939, 1940, 1941. But Romania had a lot of these Polish planes in their inventory. So what they did was actually something very, very smart. Something very smart. What they did was they took the parts that they had from Poland, from the Poles, and they took the aircraft and they totally remade them into this. Okay, these are actually Polish parts mostly. Some Romanian parts also, but mostly, you know, mostly it was made from the Polish fighter plane parts, and they made it into a monoplane. And this thing was actually pretty damn good. Let's look at the text. Yeah, see, it even says that in the 30s, Polish PZL P11, Polish PZL, but you know, let's not learn Polish here. And P-24E fighters produced under license, adopted by Romania, were becoming outdated, and they actually used these parts. They took them apart and they made a superior plane to it. Poland was led by what's called sanacja. What happened was this great guy, well, great guy, don't ask the Ukrainians or the Russians, but this semi-non-idiot guy who was called Pilsudski was leading the nation. He actually won the war with the Soviets and expanded Poland and made Poland into a decent mid-range, you know, European power. Then he died, and idiots took over. Idiots from the army, his cronies and his friends, what was called the colonels and generals. You know, it was called, you know, basically a military junta. And these guys were complete idiots. Okay, they had no idea what was going on. They didn't know how to stop Hitler. They didn't know how to stop Stalin, and or do alliances with any of them, or just do realpolitik to, you know, save the nation. They had no idea what was going on. Complete morons, as opposed to Pilsudski, who was actually pretty smart. You know, he might not the most, you know, and Poles are going to kill me who are watching this, not the most angelic guy, but he was smart. He was a realpolitik. He was kind of like a Polish Bismarck, is the closest I can come, you know, comparison I can do, which is actually a compliment to Pilsudski and Bismarck, I think. So anyway, we had the Polish Bismarck. He was Pilsudski. He died, and morons took over. And they exported. They had P-11s and P-24s, and they exported these fighter planes to make money, because obviously in the late 1930s, okay, Poland didn't need fighter planes to defend themselves from, Germany and or Soviet Union. No, 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 no. And what happened was they exported the most modern fighter planes, the P-24s, which were actually better than P-11s. They exported those planes, so Poland did not have the most modern fighter produced, P-24. They were stuck with the P-11s because they were led by idiots. Say it with me. The Polish government in 1939 was led by idiots, and in the 1930s was led by idiots. After Piłsudski died, they're just complete retards. Just, oh god. We're talking Kadorna and Hotzendorf World War I era idiocy, okay? That bad. So anyway, this airplane was produced from Polish parts, and it was awesome. It was awesome. 550 kilometers per hour at 7,000 meters. Okay? Fucking amazing. What the Romanians did with the Polish obsolete, let's face it, obsolete fighter plane was fucking amazing. Now, it only had four 762 millimeter, so it's a 450 cals. Not a world beater, but look at these. Look at this. 6-minute climb to 5,000 meters. Not that bad. Turn time, 22 seconds. Complete circle. Yeah, not bad. 550 kilometers per hour. Not bad. Let's compare it. Yeah, one more thing. You can read this if you want. These fighters fought both against the Soviet Union and against Americans, because Americans were bombing Ploeshti, because as we all know, Ploeshti was the main oil supply hub for the Axis powers. And Romania was a strategic country in World War II era and the whole war, because they had Ploeshti, and Ploeshti was the most important facility in Europe, bar none, for the Axis. Pienemunde, all these secret weapons, doesn't matter. Once the Soviets took Ploeshti, it was over. Once the bombers, American bombers, started bombing consistently, this, fuel, and they did. They flew from Italy and they flew from Africa, and they did missions against them. Actually, interesting thing was that what they did was they took off from the western areas, western occupied areas like Italy or Africa. They flew to bomb Ploeshti, and they actually landed in the Soviet Union. And then they took off from Soviet Union, bombed and landed in Africa again, and bombed Ploeshti and landed in Africa again. What was called the pendulum missions. Another interesting tidbit was that the cooperation between the Western Allies and Soviet Union was not that good, because on the one hand we have democracies, and on the other hand we have murderous, evil dictators. Yes. So what happened was the Soviets kind of fucked up, and the Germans staged a mission, a ground attack mission, to catch the American bombers on the ground in the Soviet Union, and it was a great success. The Soviet Union did not scramble enough fighters. They did not expect it. It was a total surprise, and they killed. They destroyed on the ground a bunch of B-24s, I believe, were the bombers. So there's that. The IR-80s, they fought from the beginning of the war. As you can see, it's 1940, all the way through 1943-44, against both the Soviet Union and Americans. So yeah, main modifications, as you can see, they beefed up the armament. A low maximum speed, but still, okay, it's 550 kilometers per hour. Okay, let's compare it to the Polish airplane, which was P-11. Okay, that's the range. That's not the speed. Where's the speed? Oh my God. 375 kilometers per hour. It's a joke. It's a joke. These planes took part in defending Poland and especially Warsaw area in World War II. Since we're doing the whole historical rant spiel, tearing my hair out, when we are talking about air races, we all know that the Germans had the best pilots in the world in World War II. Just without question, they had hundreds of kills, which was a double-edged sword, because they didn't rotate the pilots enough, and they didn't get the pilots to train new pilots. So in 1944, you had the situation where we had the experts, the aces, who had 50 kills, 100 kills, 200 kills, There were guys with 300 kills by the end of the war. And you had guys, who was basically like me, or even worse, who could barely take off land, and if they got into combat, the Allied pilots, the Americans, were like, oh wow, easy kills. I mean, those are the newbie Germans. And they actually did call them, newbie Germans, the idiots. And they actually recognized that, when you read the memoirs or watch the documentaries, they say, oh, this German guy was good, he was an expert, compared to, oh, this was an easy kill, he didn't even see me. So anyway, but this, what was I driving at? The best pilots, the best fighter pilots in World War II were Germans, for sure. I would make the case that for the Allies, not the Axis, because then in World War II, the next best ones were Japanese. Just the Axis were better at pretty much everything. But flying-wise, overdone technology later in the war. But for the Allies, the best fighter pilots, I would make the case that they were Poles. The Poles from the beginning of World War II, official beginning, Kalkin Gol and all of that, Normanhan is not counted. So let's go with the official history and say that invasion of Poland was the beginning of World War II, and not say invasion of China, which it really should be in 36, right? 38, whatever. They went into the air in these planes. The Luftwaffe did a surprise attack, but the Poles were not that stupid, and they actually dispersed them to airfields. So the Germans bombed empty airfields. These planes were dispersed, and they did put up credible resistance, believe it or not, against Luftwaffe, shooting down more than they lost. However, they were totally outclassed, not in pilot skill, but in technology. I mean, duh. Look at this thing. It's a joke. And in the number of airplanes in the air. Poles also had pretty decent bombers, the Wash and Karash, which were completely useless to them because without any kind of even local air superiority or in contested airspace, well, they get massacred. They just got shot down out of the sky. It was horrifying. But these guys in PZL 11s, they put up credible resistance. And there's always the myth that, oh, the Luftwaffe attacked and caught everybody on the ground, and that was it. No, that's not it. They didn't catch a single plane on the ground. Okay, they might have caught one. We might have caught one or two planes on the ground, but all of the fighters were dispersed. And the problem was they didn't have enough, and they were pursued. They were called the pursuit squadron, so they were interceptors. So they were supposed to work with the ground crews, people on the ground who were observers. And the observers are supposed to call them and say, hey, we have enemy airplanes such and such height and such altitude, speed, direction, and a number of airplanes, and this is what we think they are: fighters, bombers, two-engine, three-engine, whatever. And then these guys would get up and do combat. And this system worked great in World War II for Britain, alongside radar. They also had ground spotters, and it worked very well. Why didn't it work for Poland? Well, the German blitzkrieg, the Germans overrun a lot of territory. There was chaos. And the guys on the ground who were supposed to be spotters for the airplanes, well, they got overrun. They had to retreat. They lost their equipment. They lost their trucks. They lost the radios, etc., etc. So these guys were basically retreated to Warsaw area. And they contested the skies over Warsaw, and then at the end of the campaign, when the Soviets invaded and it was basically over, and the Polish government actually and Polish forces were retreating towards the Romanian frontier. If you remember, Romania was Axis ally, but in 1939 they were not fully Axis ally, number one. And number two, they really liked Poland. Poland and Romania and Hungary, which is very interesting, were great friends before World War II. That they were placed in opposite camps in World War II was more of an accident of history. Poles and Hungarians basically was broski love, and Poland and Romania also had very good relations. So actually the Polish armed forces, as many as they could, they evacuated to Romania, and they were interned. They were interned in Romanian camps. But because the Romanians liked the Poles so much, they kind of allowed them to escape because they were not strenuously guarding the POW camps. And the Germans were livid because these guys then went to France and they did a huge land army and huge part of the French Air Force was basically Poles. And they were Allied pilots who had the most experience. They had the most kills. If they had kills in this thing, then once they started flying superior French airplanes like Divotine, oh gosh, I don't want to say it, 420 was it? And Marcel Bloch, I can't remember the number. I don't remember if we have French planes here. Let's see. But they were basically superior planes to what the Poles were flying. So, yeah, it's gonna take me forever to look for planes here. Oh, wait a second, we do have something here. Okay, we have Potes, those are Morin-Saulnier. Okay, these things, yes. Okay, Morin-Saulnier for 10. So yeah, these planes were obviously much better than, this was not USAF, this was, oh god, France, right? Hello, do we have France here? For goodness sake, there you go. It irked me that the colors were wrong. So they had, they started flying these planes mostly, and they kicked ass. They did very well. Of course, France lost due to superior German tactics, not technology, superior German tactics. And not the number of tanks, superior German tactics in both airplanes and tanks. The Western Allies had the same amount of airplanes in the air, and the Western Allies had the same amount of tanks and better tanks than the Germans. They had better tanks, technologically speaking. More armor, better cannons. But they lost because their tactics were fuck. They were shit, okay? So... yeah, I don't see any other... okay, let's not look at this French plane because it's a joke. Okay, so where was I story? The Poles escaped from Romania, and the huge air force and huge land army, part of the land army of France was basically Poles. A couple of divisions, and almost, I don't want to say a couple hundred pilots. I'm gonna check it with the next video. In the next video, I'm gonna bring you might even go to Wikipedia, oh god, and show it. But what happened was they escaped from Poland into Romania, then from Romania into France, and they fought their hearts out, and they lost. And well, I don't see the Morin-Saulnier here for some reason. Yeah, I don't see this plane here. We can fly it, but I don't see it. These are Soviet ones. Yeah, I don't see the French ones anywhere here. Okay, anyway. So what happened then? Whoever survived, whoever didn't get captured in France, they escaped to Great Britain, to the United Kingdom. And what happened was... what is this thing? Oh god. And what happened was, well... Poles fought their hearts out, and the best fighter squadron in the Battle of Britain. If you ask the English people, of course, they will not know it because they are too proud to acknowledge it, and they basically will just say, "Oh, it must have been a," they'll give you some bullshit story. It was a Polish squadron, 303. It had the most kills, and they were using Hurricanes. And what happened was they used them more successfully than the British pilots. Why? Because their tactic was the following: get as close as possible to the enemy airplane until opening fire. Because if you spray them from far away, you're gonna miss. I mean, you can see the way I'm flying. If I get close, even I can miss, right? So that's why they had so many kills. And the British pilots called them crazy. They're nuts, those mad Polacks, and they flew with their own way. And also another thing, last thing for this video, which is getting really long. Poles were one of the first ones who basically told the British to fuck off with their bureaucratic ways, and because the British told them to fly in finger four, VICs, threes, and then finger, in the VIC formation, which is 3 airplanes, one here, one here, and one here. And the 2 airplanes who were on his back, on the leader's back, they spent more time trying not to crash into each other and into this guy, into the leader, than scanning the sky for the enemy. And the British got their asses kicked in France and the beginning of the Battle of Britain because of that. So the Poles were the first ones who basically said, you know what, fuck you, bureaucracy, because the orders to fly that way came from people who were sitting behind desks, and they they didn't fly planes for a living or dying. You know, they weren't fighter pilots. That's the way the bureaucracy is. They just told them to fly that way because that's the way we're doing it. And the Poles said, no, 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 we're part of the Polish armed forces. We do it our way, and you can just fuck off. And the British did fuck off. So once the British saw that what the Poles were doing, they will claim, oh, we'll saw it independently. You know, okay, sailor guy, Sailor Malan, yes, he was a genius and he did it independently. Right, 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 of course, right. Anyway, the British saw what the Poles did, that they're flying in pairs, just like the Germans did. And they said, hey, if the Poles are doing it and the Germans are doing it, maybe we should start doing it. And of course, the bureaucracy guys came in and the officials came in and said, no, 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 you cannot fly this way. We fly in VIX, in threes. That's the way we fly it, because this is the Royal Air Force, and that's the, that's the way it's in the paperwork, and that's how we fly it. So actually, the British pilots broke the rules, and they, some of them were taken to superior officers and asked to, fly the way the RAF is supposed to fly, which is weird because these guys are risking their lives and trying to win the war, and the bureaucracy are basically doing everything to kill them. So anyway, hopefully this was a historical rant slash rampage, really historical rampage. We started with Poland and Romania and ended in the Poles in World War II in France and then in the UK. So yeah, look it up on Wikipedia. Oh God, Wikipedia. Well, wherever you find it, I guess. But you can find first of all, look up the Polish armed forces in France in World War II. And then look up Squadron 303, which is the most famous squadron of World War II, as far as I'm concerned, basically aces. One last thing I'm going to tell you. Polish pilots were held in such high regard by the Brits that when there was still war in Africa, 1942, I believe, 43, Polish pilots were basically flying these nonsensical missions over the coast of France and into France to escort the rhubarb and strafing missions, and they didn't get much combat and they were getting bored. They were getting bored during combat missions. So the British were not they were not extremely stupid at this stage, but just they were kind of learning. So they said, hey, we have this bunch of Poles here who are basically sitting bored, just not doing much. They're complaining that they're not getting much action. They want to kill Germans. Why don't we send them to Africa? And that's what they did. They sent what was called the Polish Fighting Team. That's the actual God-honest name of this unit, Polish Fighting Team. Unofficially, it was called Skalskis Flying Circus. That's SKALSKI, Skalskis Flying Circus, or Polish Fighting Team. Look it up. Basically, they said it was a unit of Polish aces, basically, killers, okay, just killers, and they just, they were, let's just say, in Africa, they stopped being bored. They just started shooting German planes left and right. So, look it up. It's Polish history of, in World War II is actually extremely interesting, especially if you're not Polish, especially if you don't know it. I think the fourth largest land army in World War II was Poland, even though it was conquered. We had fifth probably. We had America, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, 3. Then we had China, and then I believe it was Poland in the number of men under arms who were fighting, who were basically fighting. If you count just the European ETO, European Theater of Operations, and take out China from the equation, then Poland was number 4 in the Allies on the European continent. So there. And then, as a reward, they got totally sold out by the Western Allies. So the Soviets occupied Poland. And then they lived happily ever after, under communism. So there. Okay, this video is super long. I will now quit it and fly another mission.